Imagine two brothers, born in the rugged landscapes of Scotland, embarking on a journey to a new world, America. These were the Campbell brothers, James and Alexander, who left their homeland in the 1850s to seek out new opportunities in the United States. James, the older of the two, found a new home in Charleston, South Carolina. There he worked as a drayman and clerk, immersing himself in the local culture. In his spare time, he joined a militia company known as the Union Light Infantry, a group that was sometimes referred to as the 42nd Highlanders, a nod to their Scottish heritage and the famed British Black Watch Regiment. Meanwhile, his younger brother Alexander found his place in the bustling metropolis of New York City. However, his work as a stonemason led him to Charleston, where he contributed to the construction of the new U.S. Customs House at the end of Market Street. During his time in Charleston, he enlisted in a militia company known as the Home Guards, a group primarily composed of foreign-born residents. As the 1850s gave way to the 1860s, their lives took an unexpected turn. In March 1862, James and his Union infantry were consolidated into the Charleston Battalion. Back in New York, Alexander joined the ranks of the 79th Highlander Regiment. Their lives, once so similar, were now diverging significantly, with each brother aligning himself with different sides of a rapidly escalating conflict. Despite the brewing tension, the brothers kept in touch. Letters were exchanged, detailing their experiences and their hopes for the future. Yet they remained unaware of the dramatic twist their lives were about to take. As war loomed, they found themselves preparing for battle, not knowing that they would soon be facing each other on opposite sides. As the 1860s dawned, both James and Alexander found themselves enlisted in the military, unaware of the fateful trajectory their lives were about to take. Little did they know, their brotherly bond would soon be tested on the battlefield, a testament to the tragic consequences of a nation divided. As the winds of war began to stir, the brothers corresponded, sharing their experiences and their fears. Letters crisscrossed the vast continent, connecting the lives of two men torn apart by the currents of history. The words they wrote were imbued with the heaviness of their choices, the weight of their loyalties, and the raw emotions of their shared predicament. James, in sunny Charleston, wrote with a sense of duty, of a commitment to his adopted home. He spoke of his service in the Union Infantry, of the consolidation into the Charleston Battalion, of the impending conflict. His letters were filled with the resolve of a man ready to defend what he had come to love. On the other hand, Alexander, nestled in the hustle and bustle of New York, wrote with an edge of anxiety. He spoke of his enlistment in the 79th Highlander Regiment, of the looming transfer to Charleston, and of the strange irony of fighting for a city he had once called home. His words were tinged with a deep sense of foreboding, a dread of what was to come. And then, the fateful letter arrived. Alexander, now stationed in sight of Charleston, learned from a captured prisoner, Henry Walker, about his brother's service in the vicinity of Secessionville. He relayed this unsettling information to his wife, writing, "We are not far from each other now. This was a war that there never was the like of before, brother against brother." It was a stark realization for both siblings, the understanding that they could face each other on the battlefield, not as brothers, but as enemies. It was a chilling thought, one that cast a long shadow over their correspondence. Their letters, once filled with familial warmth and shared memories, now echoed with the grim reality of their circumstances. The words they wrote were no longer just letters. They were the echoes of a divided nation, the whispers of a fraternal bond strained by the throes of war, the testament of a unique historical narrative. In Alexander's words, this was a war that there never was the like of before, brother against brother. June 1862, the Battle of Secessionville, a battle that would etch the Campbell brothers into the annals of history. On the early morning of June 16th, the Union forces launched an attack on Fort Lamar at Secessionville. The Federal forces, including Alexander Campbell's 79th Highlanders, were met with a stout resistance from the Confederates, including the Union Light Infantry, now part of the Charleston Battalion that James Campbell was a part of. Alexander, a color sergeant, bravely planted the United States flag before the parapet of Fort Lamar, standing defiant in the face of mass musketry and cannon fire. His resilience was a beacon of hope for his fellow soldiers, a symbol of their unwavering determination to take the fort. Meanwhile, his brother James was not to be outdone. As the Confederate resistance began to buckle under the pressure of the Federal onslaught, James, now a lieutenant in the Confederate Army, showed a remarkable act of bravery. He mounted the parapet unarmed, rolled a log down into the mass of advancing Federal troops, seized a Federal musket, and continued to fight. His actions rallied the Confederate forces, bolstering their resolve to hold the fort. The Charleston Mercury, a local newspaper, reported on the battle, noting the admirable courage of both sides. It highlighted the 79th New York, Alexander's regiment, for their desperate onslaughts, but also praised the stubborn resolve and lofty valor of the Confederate forces, including James's Charleston Battalion. The battle was fierce, and the tide seemed to sway back and forth. But ultimately, the Confederate forces managed to hold their ground, repelling the Union attack. This victory was a significant morale booster for the Confederacy and a setback for the Union's plan to capture Charleston. However, the Charleston Courier, another local newspaper, took a different perspective on the battle. It highlighted the Campbell brothers' actions as an illustration of the deplorable consequences of the fratricidal war. Alexander was praised for fighting gallantly in the action, displaying a heroism worthy of his regiment and a better cause. James, on the other hand, was noted for being conspicuous and honorably mentioned on the Confederate side. The brothers, unbeknownst to each other, had fought on opposite sides of the same battle. They had once lived together, worked together, and now they were fighting each other in a war that was tearing their adoptive country apart. The irony of their situation was not lost on them, as they would later find out in their correspondence. Neither brother knew at the time, but they had fought each other on that battlefield. In the aftermath of the battle, the reality of their situation began to dawn upon the brothers. Two siblings, born of the same Scottish blood, now found themselves on opposing sides of a war in their adopted homeland. The bitter taste of fraternal rivalry mingled with the metallic tang of gunpowder, their shared history suddenly rewritten by the cruel hand of conflict. As the smoke cleared and the echoes of gunfire faded, James Campbell, the Confederate, sat down to pen a letter to his brother Alexander. His words, etched onto the page, bore the heavy weight of their shared experience. "I was astonished to hear from the prisoners that you was color-bearer of the regiment that assaulted the battery at this point the other day," he wrote, the shock of their encounter still fresh in his mind. His letter continued, reflecting the complex emotions of a man torn between familial love and duty to his cause. "I was in the breastwork during the whole engagement, doing my best to beat you, but I hope you and I will never again meet face-to-face, bitter enemies on the battlefield." James's words were those of a man who had faced his brother on the battlefield, his heart a battleground of its own. In reply, Alexander, the Federal, must have felt a similar turmoil. He had seen his brother not across a family dinner table, but across a battlefield. His brother, once a companion, now an enemy. Yet, despite the harsh circumstances, there was a sense of respect, of understanding. Their letters crossed enemy lines, a testament to the bond that still existed between them. It was a poignant moment of reflection for the brothers, a stark reminder of their shared past and an uncertain future. They had journeyed from Scotland to America together, built new lives, and now found themselves at odds in a war that pitted brother against brother. James's words to Alexander encapsulated their predicament. "You have but to discharge your duty for your cause, for I can assure you I will strive to discharge my duty to my country and my cause." The tale of the Campbell brothers is more than a story of war. It's a story of family, of loyalty, and of the tragic consequences of conflict. This narrative, steeped in the bitter reality of the American Civil War, is a powerful illustration of how the reverberations of conflict can reach even the most intimate of social units, the family. The Campbell brothers, Alexander and James, born in the green hills of Scotland, found themselves on opposing sides of an ocean and a war, each believing in their chosen cause. Their story is one of bravery, duty, and sacrifice, but it's also a tale of the heart-rending choices that war imposes upon individuals and families. The brothers' journey, from their shared roots in Scotland to the battlefields of Secessionville, is a testament to the turbulent times they lived in. Theirs is a narrative that resonates with the stories of countless other families torn apart by conflict, yet it holds its own unique place in the annals of history. Their tale left an indelible mark on their contemporaries. The Charleston Courier, in its commentary on the brothers, highlighted the tragic nature of their circumstances, calling it another illustration of the deplorable consequences of this fratricidal war. The brothers' story served as a stark reminder of the human cost of war, a cost that was all too real for the people of the time. As we look back on the Campbell brothers' story, we see its enduring impact on future generations. Their tale is a powerful example of the personal toll of war, a narrative that continues to resonate in our collective consciousness. It's a reminder of the courage, the sacrifice, and the personal costs that are all too often the byproducts of conflict. The Campbell brothers, a testament to the human spirit in the face of adversity, remain a poignant reminder of a war that pitted brother against brother. Their story, etched in the pages of history, continues to echo through the ages, a solemn testament to the personal cost of war and the enduring resilience of the human spirit.